Hello friends, this is part 1 of 3 for our virtual learning day today. These videos are to help guide you through the activity that we're doing and talk loud a little bit about the instructions and to make sure that you are feeling good about what we're up to. Again, this is voluntary to students who are not taking ISTEP, or who are taking ISTEP, but those of you who aren't, please complete this assignment today. The goal is just to get you to look at something in a particular way. And so I picked out 2 AP free response problems that I want you to do half of each at the minimum for today. If you want to go through and do the second part that we don't, it's also optional. It's kind of a pick your own challenge type thing that we'll roll through. We've been studying ArrayLists, and our goal is to be able to cycle through them and pull out information about the objects that are inside of that ArrayList. And this is just kind of a piece of advice. If you want to go back to your brain from last class, I'd suggest having your 7.2 notes open in front of you to remind yourself. We learned about for each loops, which are a way for us to loop through the values in an array list, such that if we add or remove anything, we are still hitting all of them. We also learned a little bit about the fact that that variable in the for each loop now represents each object in the array list. So that now we're able to just kind of simply call methods from them as we go through. And I'm hoping that you had the chance to do at least one of these problems that's on here. The algorithms here will guide you today because in fact, a lot of them are drawn off of this particular case. Like off of these 3 situations that might be of use to us. And so let's think a little bit about the structure of a typical solution to this problem that I think is going to help set you up for success today. Most of the problems that we're going to work through are going to start with the for each loop. Most of them are going to have some sort of if statement that checks a condition, and then most of them are going to modify a variable like sum, depending on what, and that variable will be like of the return type of that particular method. You can find the return type by looking at the top of that code. So I just wanted to kind of have your mind on that as you're thinking through solutions for today. Here's kind of my description of the basic outline of one of these ArrayList problem solutions. Let's go ahead and get started. I've picked 2 problems from the 2018 and 2017 AP exams that are on the board for today. And I'd like you to do part B of each of them. Part A of them is writing constructors, which isn't as relevant to what we're doing right now, even though they do involve filling array lists. You can try them. I'll put a space at the end of this code if we can call that like our A-level challenge problems for today if we want. But I want you to do part B for each of them. So I've given a table at the top of each of these 2 problems. And I think this is the best place to start and the habits that I want to get you all into as you learn how to code these types of array list problems where you're processing data in a particular way. What information does the problem give you? And like what class are we working with and what are its methods? In your own words, what's the problem looking for? And are there any algorithms here that we already know that are relevant to us? Because if you can ask these questions, you can figure out what type of problem it is, and that'll let you start implementing it in your code down below. I'm going to ask you to do this before you try to code either of the following. And you can look for that piece of information by clicking on that particular file. Since problem number 2 here is since this is problem number 2 in the 2018 document, you won't see it until you go down to about page 7 or so for this problem. So start out by filling in these 2 tables. And then you'll try each of these on your own. I've attached 2 other videos to this in order to for you to check your work. And the rest of this video, if you fill in these 2 tables and would like to check your work, then once you've done that, continue on with the video, and I'm going to talk about these pieces of information. If you want to try them on your own and kind of just check your work at the end, that's also fine with me. So go ahead and pause the video and fill in these two tables. If you'd like to check your work on these two before actually starting the two solutions, you can go ahead and do that. If not, feel free to move on from here. Okay, so let's think a little bit about what the typical format of these things is. And when you get an ArrayList problem, it's almost always going to look like this. It's going to start with the class that has a particular constructor and some methods. Now, what class do we have for this first problem? It's telling us that we're going to use the word pair class. And it tells us that the word pair class is basically has two strings, two words that it holds onto. Those are the variables that it holds. And this is actually like a convenient place to make one of those UML diagrams if you wanted to. It also has two methods. There's a method to get the first word, and there's a method to get the second word. And it's always going to give you a second class down here. And what the second class will look like is it will have a variable that is an array list. Remember how we had problems in class where we had variables at the top? Well, one thing that this program will try to do is have you have a class that stores an array list of that particular class we saw before. Notice here that it's an array list of word pairs. So we're going to have a bunch of 2-word units that are all together. So one way we could think about this class is if it were an array list of word pairs that we're going to have this set of word pairs that each have 2 words in them. Word pair number 1, maybe that's at index 0. Hi and hello, or it's 2 words. Then we've got another one that follows after that. Maybe it says, hey, and how are you? And so we've taken that code, that class from above, and we're expecting that there's a collection of those type here. And we can go through and we can manipulate all pairs. All pairs is going to have a bunch of objects that each have 2 strings. And we can go through and manipulate them together ourselves. So today we're going to do part B. So the question is, what is it actually asking us for? The first thing that we're probably going to look at is the method num matches, which returns the number of word pair objects in all pairs for which the 2 strings match. Here's a visual representation of all pairs down here, which is helpful. And you can see that each parentheses represents an object. And this code is just supposed to count the number of word pair objects where the first and second words are equal. And something I would always also put in what is the problem looking for here, I would put the return type so that you can make sure you're making a variable of that value. In this case, since it's counting, the int is the return type. Now, are there any of the algorithms from 7.2 relevant or helpful here, and why? If we go to 7.2, we'll see that there were 3 algorithms that we had. There was our counting algorithm, which counted those that met a certain condition. And this feels like it's going to be relevant here. That one at the top, that first algorithm, that's the counting algorithm. The next video will cover the solution to num matches, but now we've actually listed out what information we have in this style. Check your work for the second one for is strictly increasing and see if you've kind of put similar information as I have up here. And if you want to see what I found for this one, read on or listen on. This is problem number 1 from the 2017 exam. And we'll notice again that it starts by giving us a class. But this time, we don't need information about some sort of specialty class like word player or train car or airplane. This just gives us an array list of integers, which is honestly super easy. This is exactly like an array, except we can use its code to, we can add and remove values from its code. The problem that we're going to do is the is strictly increasing part. And so you might be able to figure out what that is. The first question I have is, what's the return type? It's a Boolean. So it's going to return true or false. And if we scroll down to part B and read this aloud, there's a visual representation here of when it should print out true and false. The method returns true if the elements of the digit list appear in strictly increasing order, otherwise it returns false. Remember, digit list is your array list. So basically what we're just checking is, are the numbers increasing everywhere and at all times? Are the numbers increasing everywhere and at all times? Are any of the algorithms from 7.3 relevant or helpful here, and why? That should say 7.2, I apologize. We had count, we had sum, and we had checking a condition. This is our code for checking a condition with an array. So if that third algorithm might be helpful for us to check a specific condition, we know it's going to take on this format of switching between true and false if it sees something. And if you're able to modify that, you're going to be a long way to getting it done. Now try to write both questions and answer them. Watch on the second video if you want to see the solution.